Joshua Hanlon here, and I am back at the Great Ball Contraption at BrickFair Alabama 2022. So I'm happy to be joined by our good friend Stewart here. He's going to be taking us on a tour of the whole layout. So we're going to start with this big cube here and then make our way around.
All right, so this cube is something I came up with. It's one of these things where you have an idea that's stupid, and then you beat it into submission. Like, I wonder if I could make a GBC in the shape of a cube, and then you have to worry about, well, how am I going to get the balls up the middle? How am I going to distribute it to the corner? So how am I going to get them to collect at the bottom and then dump out in the right spots? And so it was a labor of love. It's not perfect, but it also lights up from the inside and is a real kind of a departure from what you normally see, which is kind of what we're trying to go for. I'm not good at doing sculptures and, elves' castles and things like that. So this is my attempt to make something a little cooler.
That works.
This is just a little stepper module we've been playing with lately. Kind of a little bit of a different design. This is my tower module. We use this. This is really a module of convenience. I used to go and do shows with Tom Atkinson, the famous Tom Atkinson, and he would always bring some kind of bridge that could be opened or something to let us get out of the inside of the loop. And then one time I had to do a show on my own. I'm like, how am I going to get out? So I whipped together one of these things, and that's kind of, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
Perfect.
This is another necessity module. It's called a reservoir module because it can hold about 200 balls, and it spits them out one at a time. So it's really good if, for example, we need to work on something downstream. You can just shut it off, and the balls can just collect here, and then turn it back on again, and they'll just feed them at a nice steady pace. For people who do computer stuff, signal stuff, it's actually like a speed matching buffer, if you will. If too much comes in too fast, it'll get it back out at the right speed and that sort of thing. This is what people call Tom's perpetual prototype. It's a version somebody did, and I put it together just so I could learn a little bit about it. I've been working on a smaller one, which I don't believe is actually on the table. We'll see later on. And it works pretty well. But I think it has too many gears, among other things. This is a module that was designed to, another stupid idea that had to be beaten into submission. The wheels themselves are only available in one model ever sold, and it was in Germany. It was a motorcycle they sold in Germany. So I had to order the wheels from Germany, and then I got here and discovered that, yes, these are the only wheels the balls would fit through, but they wouldn't raise the balls up enough. So I had to come up with a way of using these little pulley wheels on the inside with the rubber tires to get it to be high enough to jump over to the next one.
It's all about that challenge for GBC builders.
It is. It's like a puzzle where you're, I'm a software guy by trade, and so when I'm building software and there's a bug, you have to find out what the bug is and try to fix it. The difference is with software, the bugs typically stay fixed on their own, whereas with Lego, the parts break, or you find that, you keep finding the next problem.
Somebody bumps the table.
Exactly, or you drop it in the parking lot, whatever. But again, a nice idea beaten to submission. This is one of the earliest Akiyuki modules that I saw the video of it online long before people were making, instructions for how to build these things, and it only showed it from the front, so I had to guess how it worked in the back and connected. I'm always embarrassed because this is the one people love the most in terms of what it looks like, and I always have to say, yeah, I wish I designed it. But I always bring it just because it's such a pretty module. Okay, here we have a husband and wife team that has taken some fairly standard modules and then totally redone. This is done in the classic space theme, which is really neat.
It's a moon-based module.
Well, kind of, because it's got the moon plate. But I always encourage people to, if they're capable of doing it, to try to make these things more attractive and not just industrial looking like the stuff I do.
So that means you're going to do an Elves Castle now then.
That's already done by Brian Bell's wife and daughter. But when we do things, for some people the challenge is how do I decorate something and make it look cool. For other people it's how do I come up with a new mechanical mechanism. And in my case it's more of a focus on the mechanical mechanism. And so a lot of people are reusing existing known mechanical mechanisms and just trying to make them look interesting. For example, this is a BrickWorld workshop module. This is a fairly standard ball pump.
I love the ski slope, or like snowboarders, ski slope, the
isn't that great?
winter activity.
Yeah, it's sort of like a chairlift, right, kind of thing. It's another small piston machine with an agitator. We always need to have an agitator whenever the balls are coming together into a small opening. Otherwise, you'll get two balls will fit together side by side and block the opening. And so having something that spins or something that flicks the balls. This next one was our first workshop module at BrickFair, and it doesn't need an agitator because the balls fall onto the first piston, which is in and of itself an agitator, like that. So they don't get stuck. This was this year's workshop module. It does have an agitator, as you can see, and it uses a sweeper arm. We try to change the mechanisms up a little bit every year. There's a lot of people do these variations on a theme here with a wheel with holes in it to pick up the balls. You just put them at a slight angle so the balls don't fall out. But in this case, it's just being used as an input to these forks. This is an Akiyuki design, largely, and it's like all of Akiyuki's designs, is tremendously fun to watch, and makes you just go, how does that work? And then you can go on to Beyond the Brick and slow down the playback and see how it works. Going around the corner here, we've got a fairly simple chain lift. Turns out that all you really need to make one of these modules is an inexpensive motor, some maybe a chain, a couple gears, a couple axles. It doesn't have to be, you know, an EV3 computer and everything else.
Crazy complex or something.
No, and you shouldn't start that way probably anyway. It's good also to download some ideas off the internet and maybe try them, get the parts maybe off of BrickLink. Try building it. You'll learn so much from just trying to get it to work. Here we have a nice little mini stepper where the steps are only 1 brick wide, but it still manages to work because of the chi slips that are on there.
That flow wave effect is really nice.
Yeah, it's good visually, even though it's small. Coming in here, this is another Akiyuki, uses a spiral lift to get started, and then does the cup-to-cup motion. Again, fascinating stuff from Akiyuki, which, you know, we all wish we were Akiyuki at this point. I like it when people build Akiyuki modules because they're so much fun to watch and look really good for the public. I'm not so excited about when that's all people do. And all they do is they trade Akiyuki files and build them, and then, hey, you want to buy my Akiyuki module for $100 or whatever? And I want to build another Akiyuki module. I would like to use that as a springboard to say, wow, I learned so much from building this Akiyuki module. Let me do that for some of my own new creation.
Something more original.
Yeah, we do allow people to bring other people's work here because it allows people to gain experience, and that's a good thing, right? You know, not everybody is Leonardo da Vinci. And in fact, this is really plastic engineering. So we are building upon the discoveries and the ideas of people who came before us. You know, people who build a car today are building up 100 years of experience of other people building cars. And a patents notwithstanding, you know, they didn't have to figure out how to attach wheels to axles. That's kind of been done.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing to learn from other people's experience. In this case, we have a good example. This is a fairly simple little chain lift, but look what they did. They put a Lego.
It's all wind powered.
Wind powered, yeah, it's all wind powered. Yeah, breeze coming through is driving this whole thing, and no, not really, but boy, does it look good. You know, it tracks your eye, and it's attractive. They put a little house out front and everything. Now we're getting into a couple small modules. These are either BrickWorld or BrickFair instances of BrickWorld or BrickFair workshop modules. Again, these two here are last year's or 2 years ago because we were off for COVID. The workshop module is called a cardan lift. It uses a very interesting gear design in order to achieve this sort of straight line motion to flip the balls up and over. It's one of those things where you look at it, even if after you've built it, you look at it and go, how does that work? but it does. And so that's one of the reasons why we did that design. Now, it does have some timing issues. You actually have to get the gears right, which has made it a little more of a difficult build. And if things were to pop off, getting it back together, making it run properly. So it was an ambitious workshop module. But it has the benefit of being a really cool one versus building like the most simplest thing you can think of. This is another little mini sweeper using axles as a sweeper. This is actually Ethan's version of my version of Tom's perpetual thing.
That we saw at the beginning.
Right. This is a much shorter version with less gearing and trying to just make it smaller, less parts, simpler. I'm going to let Ethan actually take over now and talk about all the modules he's done in the next section, and I'll pick you up on the other end.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Stuart. So start off, my name's Ethan McCain from Southern Indiana, just here in BrickFair, Alabama. So glad to be back at shows and be able to display alongside so many awesome builders, just like myself. So we'll continue from where Stuart left us off. So we had my yellow banana gig module on the end, just reliability, awesome look. Then we moved into his catapult based on his version of Tom's module. I took it, cleaned it up a little bit.
Added the gold crown.
Yeah. Tried to get rid of that chrome headlight piece. That, they're $15 or whatever now. So then we'll move over into my little pinwheel module. All it is a sprocket wrapped in tread and then with the pins in it. So it's basically the smallest conveyor you could possibly get if you want to be like that. Then we'll move into my Akiyuki train. So let's just start off by saying don't expect to build this from Akiyuki's website and get it to work first try. That's not how it works. You'll build it probably the first time and you'll probably get mad at it and want to smash it, but that's all right. So I built it and was able to modify it, added the rubber band reversers instead of the shock absorbers, and then built the rechargeable train carts to where you can recharge them instead of using batteries. And it's been running flawless so far this weekend.
So is that what's happening here?
Yeah, we're actually charging them. So you have to have four carts, I should say, so to where you can run two at a time and charge two. So we load them here, and then we move on to the passing unit. So what happens here is the two carts pass each other, but the mechanics involved make sure that they do not collide because they don't always pass at the exact same time. And if there would be, if that would happen, they'd just run into each other and it'd be a total disaster.
As entertaining as that would be, it's not good for the layout.
No, we definitely don't want that to happen. So we move on from there, down the track some more into the unloader. Same idea, we've got the rubber bands on the reverser and then added some counterweights, just lots of mods from the original. Then we'll move on into a little module by Lego Marble Run. And this was Hugh's version of it, Hugh Millington, the founder of Brickset. Really cool, simple, reliable, nothing bad to say about it. Then we move on to my new favorite. This is Monkey Pong. This is based off of a famous arcade game and the module itself is by Staffen from, I'm not sure where he's from, but he's made some really great designs, and this is just one of the many he has available on Rebrickable, so please check him out.
So in the back here, it's just kind of a conveyor belt basically feeding them.
Yeah, it's simple mechanics, simple mechanism, but it's just so elegant. It's got such a neat design that it really pulls the crowd in. Then we move on from that into just a section of workshop modules. So we've got the 2017 from Brickworld, the 2018 from Brickworld, the 2019 from Brickworld. Man, I'm getting sick of saying Brickworld and workshop module, but that's all right. And then we move on to the card lift, which was the 2019. Then we move on to this past year's from Virginia, BrickFair, the sweeper. And then we move on to something a little different. This is a Archimedes screw using the banana gears. 56 banana gears in total on this module. This is based off of Mako Arts design, but I got the idea from Brian Bonahum at Brick World. So it's simple, really nice, just module. Wasn't intended to use today because I had a big module behind me that's in the graveyard, but hey, that's part of it, I guess.
I like this one because you can see through the sections there, and you can see the balls as they move through.
Yes, and that's with some Archimedes screws you can't see inside of them, and I feel like that tears away from the module itself because you want to be able to see what's going on in there without looking, down through the end of it. So we'll move on into just a nice conveyor, simple, Technic, reliable, and then we move on into my brick separator sweeper. So another one I didn't intend to have on the table, but here we are. So basically what happens is they just fall in, and those brick separators are just sweeping them down through the hole and out on the ramp. Just a little bit different of something to do with them, because I feel like any way you can use those brick separators you got laying around and make them useful, that's a good thing. Next we'll move into another Hugh Millington design. This one is his scissor lift. So basically, if you look down there on the bottom, you can see the scissor actually opening and compressing. And then we move on into Hugh Millington's pusher-upper. Just like a coin pusher mechanism that pushes the balls up and down. And it's really interesting, if you look under, you can see how it's so similar to an actual stepper in a module compared to a coin pusher, but it's very reliable, very good module. Then we move over. We got a little break here, but hey, that's part of it. Remember, we got the 2019 or last year's BrickFair sweeper, and
we've got a work in progress happening next year. This is the real look behind the scenes of GBC.
Exactly. Hey, it wouldn't be a show without something breaking. Wish we could sit down and actually have a seat for a little bit, but that's not never the case. That's really, truthfully, it's not.
So, Stuart, what's happening here?
Well, this is what happens when you build engineering out of snap-together plastic parts. I once had a lady say, back when the Mars landers were coming down, this lady said, "It's a good thing that you guys didn't build the Mars lander." I said, "Lady, we don't build Mars lander out of snap-together plastic. It's not a good engineering decision." So I'm gonna switch over now and hand you off to Andrew. And Andrew is the one who did the wind turbine module we saw earlier, and he's got the next series of modules, and he'll talk all about them.
Perfect. Well, thank you for showing your modules.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Here we go.
Hello, so I'm Andrew Carpenter from Lubbock, Texas. I've got a few modules here, starting with my bridge here. This is one I built a few years back. This is its first time being at a major show. It's gone through a few iterations, but I think it's working pretty good. It hasn't had a single problem so far this show. So it's
I like the blue and yellow look.
yes, it was I had a lot of blue 1x15s Technic, and I had almost enough. You can see there's just a few at the very bottom. I need to get off a BrickLink, but yeah. So after that, we go into a 2019 Brickworld Workshop module. It's one I got there at Brickworld. It's you can see it's got a lot of dust in it after running after the few years. Definitely needs to be cleaned. But next after that is the Cradle Tipper by Mindstork, I believe. I got the instructions online, and it's a very reliable module. I haven't had a single problem with it. I mean, it flew here. It's been to 5 shows and hasn't had a single issue ever since I built it. So it's really good. And it's just straight from the instructions. So this next module here was designed by Mako Arts, a European guy, and he had it's very good. It's also a very reliable module. It's using one single Lego set. It's on the card. It's a 42006, I believe. It's like a Technic excavator. Very good set. And this module and the next one, this chain lift, are both made using that Lego set. So really good C model there. And this next module here is a Brickworld 2017. I had one earlier by my windmill. It's a very reliable module. Again, very easy to build, very reliable, and keeps on working. So I'm using it to feed into the next module, which is what I call Tom's Wonder Box. It's a kind of a joke towards Tom Atkinson. It's got all different kinds of things that Tom doesn't like. It's got the module where he can't see it. He never likes not being able to see the mechanism, so I made it very obvious that he can't see it. And then it's got on the back here, you can't see it on the camera, these chains that actually aren't spinning, but he always talks about how much he hates these chains. So
I love it. You just modules that troll other GBC builders are the best.
yes, it's there. It's very fun, and it's also fun too when the public asks what's going on in there. They don't understand why it's in a box. I have to explain that. So and of course out front of it is the Beyond the Brick microphone copy.
Obviously, we've reached the best part of the layout here. This is fantastic, though. Thank you for recreating this. You've got the Beyond the Brick module and then the microphone there, which is very accurate to the microphone we use at all of our shows. So I love this. Great job.
Yes, thank you for that. So yeah, the Beyond the Brick module is one of the 3 banana gigs. These are some of my oldest modules. Beyond the Brick and the CrossFit Throne. They decided to sponsor a module, so I put it in there, and it goes to all my shows. Even though they're way back in Texas, they're still getting advertising here. And then, of course, my original banana gig there. So the next module here is what I call the slow conveyor. That's literally what it is. It's a slow conveyor. And it's a very reliable module. It keeps the balls at about 1 ball per second, usually if there's a good amount of balls in it, of course. But it's made to be very cheap and reliable module, so that's basically what it is. And then the next module here is what I call the screw spiral. It's kind of a take on Philo's screw, except not exactly, because I didn't even know Philo's screw existed until after I built it. So it's a very, I lost my train of thought here.
Yeah, it looks really cool with the blue tube going up.
Yeah, I have a one at home that I'm working on that's going to be a better colored one, so it'll be all black and yellow. But the next module here, this actually isn't my module. This is someone else's. I forget. He built a lot of the automation stuff. Anyways, he's like 8 years old, and he built this copy of Matt Norman's Solaire, and it's really good. And the funny thing is, my Solaire was totally destroyed on the flight here, so it kind of fills in for mine really well. But it hasn't had a single problem, so he did a great job on it. And then my next module here is the last one. Is the first module I built, the dual conveyors. It's a very good, reliable module. One thing I've changed since y'all last saw it is it has a splitter on the end now. So I can split the balls into 2 paths, or they can just combine into 1 like we're doing here. So yeah, that's the end of my modules here. Thank y'all.
Well, great work. Thank you. And we're back to Stewart.
All right. So now we're going to enter the more uniform, less exciting section, I guess, in some respects. So we start with another reservoir module, which is good to be able to, again, to isolate sections of the display. And what follows that is a whole series of these red modules, which are this year's workshop module that we did. Now, to understand, for workshop, what we do is we design our own kit, and we make our instructions, and we source the parts, and we put it in a pretty box, and then exhibitors who come to the show can then, not the public, but the exhibitors can buy them, and then we put them all together and do like a big group build where we can help people. And so people who've never built Technic before, never done Great Ball Contraption, can have their hand at trying to build a module. And these have gone through substantial testing to make sure that they're compliant with the standard and that they work really well and are easier to build as best we can. And so when they're done, we tell them, hey, put something on there to make it look like yours. Add a minifigure.
I love the minifigures over here on this one.
Yeah, do whatever you want to make it look like yours, because otherwise they all look the same. But then right before this, there's one little module. It's a splitter module, and it uses an input mechanism that's basically one of Akiyuki's input mechanisms. It's been slightly modified. And then for the output, there's a very, very incredibly simple left-right splitter. So every other ball goes left or right. And that allows us now to run these things in parallel and get more modules in less space. And because they're all the same, we're not really interested in necessarily showcasing them all in one big line. People would not want to walk 3 or 4 tables and see the same thing. So it helps us to combine them. And then at the end, they just point back together into one module. Here you have a nice reciprocal banana gear scoop going back and forth. always looks like it's going way too slow, but because it picks up enough balls on each trip, it still meets the standard. Here we have a, I don't know what you call this kind of design.
Like a turnstile type of design.
Yeah, turnstile, it's a good word for it. The thing is, people use so many different kinds of, they use splat gears, as they call them. They use Technic pieces. They use all kinds of stuff to do the turnstile action. And so part of the challenge is to figure out how to gear it and which parts you want to use, and can you make it maybe a little different than somebody else's. This is, again, the first year BrickFair module, which is just a piston module, but it's nice because it can hold up to 200 balls, which is way beyond the standard. This is a very simple chain lift. The agitation is provided, I mentioned earlier, is provided by the pins themselves as they come through here. It then dumps into a ball pump, a brick roll ball pump, which is has its own agitator, and it's pushing the balls up this chimney to then go down these ramps. But the ramps are made out of the Technic black pins and the 2 stud long barrel connectors. And that was kind of like the challenge, I guess, that Mike here used when he built it, was, can I make these rails using those parts? Sometimes
Having a little bit of spilling out here.
Yeah, it's this is a work in progress. I think this is a first year module and has some
Work the kinks out.
work the kinks out. That's right. Sometimes it's got to burn in too. The nice thing is that a lot of times some of the creativity comes from the fact that I've got a big bucket full of these silver barrel connectors. What can I build with it, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you say, well, maybe I'll try this and see whether it works or not. We'll follow it up with another one of these workshop modules. Another, we saw earlier one here with the sweeper with the arms. Another brick roll ball pump, this time in black. Although it's a little taller and it doesn't use the gate or the ladder for output. Another simple lift here, another brick roll ball pump. This one here is an example where Mike's using a brick roll ball pump as the main thing, but then he's running it through a castle design. The castle's actually using the modular castle stuff that Mark and Steve Erickson of Lego Masters fame have designed. So you can buy this plans for how to make the sections in kind of a modular castle you can build at home. But then he took it and said, well, I bet I can make that into a GBC.
Yeah. No, it's very nicely decorated. It looks great.
The next module is, again, this is actually a convenience module. We did have something else in here that was really long, and it broke. And so having had many shows before where we've had a problem with these things, I basically made this zigzag module, I call it. That's probably the simplest stupid thing you can think of. It's just a ramp, but I made it go back and forth a little bit for visual interest. And I can take off different sections and make it shorter or longer depending on how much gap I need to fill. I could also replace it with 3 or 4 other modules, and I might do that at some point on the weekend. But last night we needed a quick fix, and so in it went. Another BrickFair piston module, and then this dumper module. This is again patterned after the water bucket you see at amusement park, or a water park. It works on the same principle, where the center of gravity and the center of the axis of being off a little bit causes it to tip, and then but the weight would then be below the axis so that it comes back to vertical again or near vertical. I've done a lot of toying with this over the years, and this year I redid the bucket to try to make it a more reliable tipper because it used to get stuck a lot, and it seems to be doing much better. Sometimes it tips forward, sometimes it tips backwards, but it's not getting stuck as much. And that's an example of what we do of iterative engineering. You know, you build something and it works pretty well, but you futz with it a lot. And so you say, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to make it work a little better. I'm going to make it work a little better. I'm going to make it jam less. I'm going to make it leak balls less. I'm going to make it need less attention. And eventually, you kind of make it good enough that you can just ignore it all day. And then you go, hey, I have this idea for a new module. And it's going to be really complex. And then you start the whole process over again.
So you're kind of always striving for that perfection, which is basically not having to mess with it at all while the layout is set
I
up.
will confess, there is this magic moment that's happened every now and then where you're at a show and you've got maybe 2 or 3 people inside here working the modules, and then you're 2 of you go outside and you get caught up in a conversation, and the third person goes and gets a drink, and you're like suddenly realize, wait a minute, who's watching all the modules? And you turn around and they're all working. And you're like, could this be? And so, and then you rush back in because you're afraid.
Because it won't last long.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's the ideal, right? And if anybody who ever comes here who's brought a very complex module and then had to stand over it all day for 2 days with the public here, you know, and just sweating bullets trying to get it working, will know the feeling and why we want to try to make things better. This one here, well, first of all, I go back to this one here. This particular one is designed by Yiharua. It's a Spanish designer, I believe. Again, sort of a little bit of convenience. I needed an extra module for a show, and I was able to just pull down and whip it up with parts I had on stock. And it being a little different than some other ones, I said, I'll just keep it. So for this one, we've got this back and forth motion. It's very, very simple, but it's really fun to watch. It's kind of mesmerizing for kids down at kids' eye level, and not much else to say about it. So this is the train. This one's gone through a lot of iterations. I've been running for many years. It had a lot of problems early on as the batteries would decay. It would need a lot of hand holding. So I did the software to compensate for that, so that it can pretty much run all day without the batteries being changed. It knows how to correct. It's self-correcting. It has a lot of features that I don't even use. Being able to run with a very, very long track and yet still keep up the proper number of balls per minute. There are 2 NXT Mindstorm's NXT robot brains here, one in the loader and one on the train car itself, and they communicate to each other using signals. The train itself knows when to start and stop based upon color-coded panels with a color sensor on the back. And there's also adjustments I can do on the trains to change the top speed, or also to change how many balls go per trip. That allows me to compensate for if I have a much longer track. And in the weird event that I might be doing a show where we don't have an actual circular loop, where we just have a line of modules, it can actually, the software has been designed, I can run a different version of the program and it will run backwards and pick up the balls from one end and then bring it back to the beginning, behind all the other modules. Never had to use that, but that feature's there. So the train module goes all the way from the input all the way to here. This is the output of the train module. It goes into another one of the sweeper ones we talked about. And now we're back to the beginning.
Awesome, fantastic. Another great layout here at BrickFair Alabama. Do you know how many people were involved in total? You can estimate.
8 or 9, I think. Not counting the workshop modules that people did last night. But in terms of the people who signed up and brought stuff ahead of time. That includes people who brought 1 or 2 things, up to people who brought 20 feet of modules, or 30 feet of modules.
Have you done a module count yet?
I believe we had a rough count of 89 last night. I don't know what it is right now. It's probably a little bit less. I'm sure your eagle-eyed spotters will go back through the video and find out how many there are currently. We may end up with a few more before the end of the weekend. Again, if I take my zigzag module out and replace it with a few other modules, we'll see.
But it's another great layout, and as always, the public, I've seen them very much enjoying looking at it. I'm sure there have been a lot of great reactions.
Well, we're actually, we have to be on our game because we're in between the great Taylor Hianu, who's got his wonderful automatons, which you've covered on your show before, and he's got more new ones again. And then on the other side, we've got the Brick Masters. And so, you gotta stay in your game if you want.
Surrounded by talent.
Yeah, exactly. Plus so many other great builders here. But yeah.
There you go. Well, it keeps pushing you to do better, and you guys have all done great.
Speaking of talent.
Thank you so much for taking us on another video here, Stuart.
Our pleasure.